The tension in the room was palpable as Senator Patty Murray leaned forward, her voice dripping with authority, lecturing Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett on the supposed importance of experience in legislation, claiming that Crockett's youth and comparatively short time in office meant she lacked the understanding necessary to navigate the complex labyrinth of policymaking. But Jasmine, calm and unshaken, listened intently, her eyes locked on Murray, absorbing every word without a flicker of fear. And then, in a calculated moment that sent a shockwave through the chamber, Crockett began to dismantle the lecture point by point, citing real examples where Murray herself had introduced bills that had failed spectacularly, where the legislation had either stalled in committee, been riddled with loopholes, or caused unintended consequences that the public criticized loudly. And as she enumerated the facts, one by one, the room began to shift, murmurs rising among colleagues and staffers alike, because no one had ever dared to confront Murray with such precision, highlighting her own missteps while maintaining poise and respect for the office. And as Jasmine continued, she connected these failures directly to Murray's admonitions about experience, revealing that experience without results was empty, and that passion, insight, and diligence could outweigh decades of office tenure when the actions didn't align with outcomes, causing even the most hardened politicians to pause, some whispering to each other, some trying to mask their astonishment, as Crockett's words cut through the air with razor-sharp clarity, laying bare the hypocrisy of criticizing newcomers when the established leaders themselves had repeatedly faltered. And when she paused for just a moment, letting her points sink in, the silence was deafening, the weight of truth pressing down on everyone present, because the audacity of the moment, coupled with the undeniable facts she presented, made it impossible to argue. And suddenly the entire narrative of experience being synonymous with competence was challenged right there on the floor, leaving Murray visibly unsettled, her usual confident posture faltering, and colleagues on both sides of the aisle exchanging glances, knowing that they were witnessing a rare event in congressional history where a rising lawmaker not only held her ground but also skillfully turned the critique into a lesson in accountability, integrity, and results-driven leadership. And as Crockett wrapped up her response with a final, measured line that reminded everyone that public service demanded tangible impact over mere years served, the room erupted in quiet applause. Pence paused mid-note, cameras zoomed in on every reaction, and the political world outside the chamber would later explode online with clips, analysis, and debates, praising the young Congresswoman's brilliance and poise, cementing that day as a turning point where courage, preparation, and truth triumphed over empty lectures. And the echo of that confrontation would be studied by political analysts, students of law, and aspiring leaders for months to come, serving as a vivid illustration that intelligence, courage, and meticulous research could allow even a relatively new voice to teach seasoned lawmakers a lesson that would resonate far beyond the walls of the Capitol, proving once and for all that experience is not measured in years alone, but in the ability to act decisively, correctly, and with integrity. And as Jasmine left the chamber that day, her stride calm but confident, she knew she had not only defended herself but had elevated the standards of discourse, demonstrating that preparation, truth, and poise could turn a lecture into a masterclass in political accountability, leaving a legacy in that single moment that would inspire future generations of lawmakers to value substance over tenure, and reminding every viewer, journalist, and political commentator that real experience is about results, courage, and the unwavering commitment to do what is right, not simply occupying a seat in power. The room was still buzzing from the shockwaves of Jasmine Crockett's precise takedown of Senator Patty Murray when the post-hearing coverage exploded across news outlets, social media, and political forums, with every commentator dissecting the moment she exposed Murray's own legislative failures while calmly asserting her credibility. And yet, the drama was far from over, because once the cameras stopped rolling and the official proceedings concluded, the real political undercurrents began to surface, whispers of retaliation and whispered warnings echoing through the corridors of Capitol Hill, as Murray's aides frantically tried to control the narrative, reaching out to journalists, allies, and party members to spin the incident as a mere misunderstanding, claiming that Crockett had misrepresented facts or been overly aggressive. Yet this only amplified the story, fueling viral clips and hashtags that celebrated Crockett as a rising force, a young lawmaker unafraid to confront senior members with facts and logic. And as days turned into weeks, the ripple effect became undeniable, with constituents praising her courage, advocacy groups citing her as an example of principled leadership, and even bipartisan observers acknowledging that she had masterfully turned a potential attack on her inexperience into a demonstration of meticulous research, strategic communication, and moral authority, all while maintaining impeccable composure, which in itself became a talking point about emotional intelligence in politics. And as Murray faced mounting scrutiny, her political advisors began whispering about the long-term impact on her reputation, the need to schedule press conferences, and perhaps more importantly, to avoid repeating the type of condescending behavior that Crockett had publicly highlighted. because now the spotlight was on Murray, and every misstep could be magnified exponentially, while Crockett's office simultaneously capitalized on the moment to push her own legislative agenda, showing that a young, prepared lawmaker could not only survive a direct attack from a senior figure but leverage it to increase visibility for her bills, her initiatives, and her voice in committees, proving to colleagues and constituents alike that effective leadership isn't about tenure but about diligence, courage, and the ability to communicate with precision and authority. And behind the scenes, Crockett's team meticulously tracked the media coverage, sharing positive clips with stakeholders, community leaders, and advocacy organizations to reinforce the narrative that she was a competent, fearless, and solution-oriented lawmaker, a stark contrast to the empty rhetoric of some long-serving politicians. And as more analyses poured in, political pundits highlighted the multi-layered nature of the confrontation. It wasn't just a clash of experience versus youth, but a clear demonstration of accountability, the consequences of failed legislation, and the importance of backing criticism with verifiable facts, which resonated with the public increasingly frustrated by partisan theatrics and empty claims, making Crockett's approach not just a win in that chamber, but a case study for how emerging leaders can navigate the treacherous waters of politics by relying on preparation, research, and strategic composure. And as the national conversation evolved, other young lawmakers began citing her example in speeches and interviews, emphasizing the lesson that credibility comes from substance, that integrity can command attention regardless of age or position, and that public scrutiny, when met with careful preparation, can transform into a platform for meaningful influence. And even as Murray tried to recalibrate her public image, the comparison was inevitable. Crockett's response had become a template, a blueprint for turning confrontation into opportunity, for using data, precedent, and calm authority to challenge assumptions, and for reminding everyone that the true measure of experience is effectiveness, not longevity. While inside Capitol Hill, lobbyists, committee chairs, and legislative staff quietly acknowledged that a shift had occurred, that a new standard of accountability had been demonstrated, and that Crockett's fearless, articulate approach was reshaping expectations for interactions between senior and junior members, creating an environment where ideas, facts, and competence could no longer be dismissed simply due to age or tenure. And as the months progressed, the fallout from that single hearing continued to influence committee debates, public town halls, and media coverage, reinforcing the enduring lesson that preparation, courage, and unwavering commitment to truth can elevate even the most underestimated lawmaker to a position of respect, visibility, and influence, leaving an indelible mark on political discourse, and cementing Jasmine Crockett's reputation not merely as a young congresswoman, but as a transformative force capable of redefining what it means to confront power with knowledge, integrity, and grace, ultimately proving that when experience is measured in action and results rather than years, the consequences for those who underestimate rising leaders can be both immediate and profound, a reality witnessed in real time by a captivated nation eager for leadership that is accountable, fearless, and rooted in fact rather than empty legacy.